Jiho stared at his screen with tired eyes. He had been working for 16 hours straight, reviewing planetary data from the outer rim of the galaxy. His job was simple but boring. He looked at planets, checked their threat levels, and filed reports. Most planets were empty rocks. Some had simple life like plants or small animals. A few had dangerous creatures, but nothing the Galactic Council couldn't handle. His supervisor, Hyeron, walked past his desk carrying a hot drink. She noticed him rubbing his eyes and stopped. "Still working on the Sol system?" she asked. Jiho nodded. "Almost done. Just one more planet. The third one from their star. They call it Earth." Hyeron smiled. "Earth, I read the preliminary reports. Primitive species. They just figured out how to leave their planet a few decades ago. Should be an easy classification." Jiho pulled up Earth's file on his main screen. The database began processing the information. Temperature ranges, atmospheric composition, gravity levels, and biological data all flowed across his monitor. He had done this thousands of times before. The system would analyze everything and give the planet a threat rating from 1 to 10. 1 meant harmless. 10 meant extremely dangerous. He sipped his cold coffee and waited for the results. The screen flickered. Jiho frowned. That was unusual. The database never flickered. It was the most advanced computer system in the known galaxy. It had processed data from millions of planets without a single error. The screen went black. "What?" Jiho leaned forward and tapped the screen. Nothing happened. Hyeron noticed the dark monitor. "Problem?" "The system crashed," Jiho said. "That's never happened before." "Restart it," Hyeron suggested. Jiho pressed the reset button. The system hummed back to life. He loaded Earth's data again and started the analysis. The database began processing the information. Numbers and graphs appeared on the screen. Everything looked normal. Then the screen flickered again. This time, red warning symbols appeared across the display. Error messages popped up faster than Jiho could read them. The computer made a strange beeping sound like it was struggling to think. Then it crashed again. "Hyeron," Jiho called out. "You need to see this." His supervisor walked over and looked at the dead screen. Her smile faded. "Run a diagnostic. Maybe the Earth data file is corrupted." Jiho ran every diagnostic test in the system. Everything checked out perfectly. No corrupted files. No damaged hardware. No software errors. The database was working exactly as it should. He loaded Earth's data for the third time. The same thing happened. Flicker. Red warnings. Strange beeping. Crash. "This doesn't make sense," Hyeron said. She pulled up a chair and sat next to Jiho. "Let me try something." She accessed the system's core programming and adjusted the analysis parameters. "Maybe the planet has some unusual element that's confusing the scanner. Let's narrow the search." She ran the analysis again, this time focusing only on Earth's largest predators. The system processed the data smoothly. A moment later, results appeared on the screen. "See?" Hyeron pointed at the display. "Threat level 3. They have some big animals. Bears, large cats, crocodiles. Nothing unusual for a developing world." Jiho felt relieved. So it was just a glitch after all. "Wait," Hyeron said. "Run the full planetary analysis one more time. I want to see where exactly it crashes." Jiho started the complete scan again. This time he watched the process carefully. The system analyzed Earth's geology, climate, and oceans without any problems. Then it moved to biological data. It processed plants successfully. Then insects, then fish and reptiles, then birds and mammals. Everything was fine until the system reached one specific category: dominant intelligent species. The moment the database tried to classify humans, everything went wrong. The screen filled with red text. Warnings scrolled faster and faster. The computer's cooling fan started spinning loudly. The entire workstation began to vibrate. Then a single message appeared in the center of the screen in large, bright letters: "Classification error, cannot process, threat level undefined." Below that, another line of text appeared. "Planetary scale apex predator detected. Entire planet registers as single organism." Jiho and Hyeron stared at the message in silence. "That's impossible," Hyeron finally said. "The system must be malfunctioning." "I ran full diagnostics 3 times," Jiho replied. "Everything checks out." Hyeron stood up and paced around the office. "A planet can't be a predator. That's not how biology works. Predators are individual creatures, lions, sharks, things like that, not entire planets." Maybe it's talking about a hive mind, Jiho suggested. Some species share a collective consciousness. The Vraxi use pheromones to coordinate their colonies. The Kellen have a distributed neural network across their entire population. But those are still individuals, Hieron argued. They can think separately even if they work together. This message is saying the entire planet is one thing. Jiho ran the analysis again with different parameters. Same result. He tried isolating just the human population data. Same error. He attempted to classify humans using the standard intelligent species template. The system refused to process it. Every single approach led to the same conclusion. Earth could not be classified using normal methods because the database kept registering it as a single. Unified threat, we need to report this, Hieron said. Report what? That our computer thinks a planet is a monster? The Council needs to know. Earth is scheduled for first contact in 6 months. If there's something wrong with their threat assessment, we need to figure it out before we send diplomats there. Jiho saved all the error logs and compiled a report. Within an hour, it was on the desk of Council member Wanho, who oversaw the First Contact Division. 2 days later, Jiho and Hieron were called to a meeting with the Council's senior analysts. They brought their data and prepared to defend their findings. Wanho sat at the head of the conference table, looking annoyed. I read your report. You're telling me that our database, which has successfully classified over 3 million planets, suddenly can't figure out a primitive world that barely has space travel? That's correct, Hieron said calmly. We've tried every approach. The system refuses to process Earth using standard methods. Then the system is broken, Wanho said flatly. We ran complete diagnostics, Jiho added. The system is functioning perfectly. It only has problems with Earth. Another council member, an elderly analyst named Borum, spoke up. What if the system is working correctly and we're interpreting the results wrong? Everyone turned to look at her. The database is designed to identify threats, Borum continued. It's programmed to recognize patterns of danger across millions of species and environments. If it's flagging Earth as a unified threat, maybe we should take that seriously. You can't be suggesting that an entire planet is actually a predator. Wanho scoffed. I'm suggesting we investigate further before dismissing the findings, Borum replied. The room fell silent. Finally, Wanho sighed. Fine. Hieron and Jiho, you two will lead an investigation team. Go to Earth, observe these humans up close. Figure out why the database is malfunctioning. You have 3 months. If you can't find an explanation by then, we'll classify Earth as a standard level 4 civilization and proceed with first contact as planned. Jiho and Hieron exchanged glances. They were actually going to Earth. Assemble a team, Wanho added. Take whoever you need. But understand this. The Council expects a rational explanation, not science fiction nonsense about planet-sized monsters. As they left the meeting room, Jiho felt both excited and nervous. They were about to visit a world that somehow broke their most advanced computer system, a world that registered as a single unified threat. A world that might be more dangerous than anyone realized. The observation ship hung silently in orbit above Earth, hidden from human detection by advanced cloaking technology. Jiho stood in the main viewing area, staring down at the blue and green planet below. White clouds swirled across the surface. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Hard to believe this place is dangerous, he said quietly. Hieron stood beside him holding a data tablet. We're here to find out what's really going on. Let's not make assumptions. Behind them, the rest of the investigation team worked at their stations. Minho, their xenobiologist, was reviewing medical scans of human specimens. Subin, their artificial intelligence specialist, was analyzing human computer networks and communication systems. Initial scans complete, Minho announced. I'm uploading the biological data now. A holographic display appeared in the center of the room, showing a 3-dimensional model of a human body. The image rotated slowly, highlighting different systems and organs. Physically, they're not impressive, Minho explained. Average strength compared to other species. No natural armor, no claws or fangs. Their bite force is weak. They can't see very well in the dark. Their sense of smell is terrible. So they're not dangerous predators? Hieron asked. I didn't say that, Minho replied. He zoomed in on the human skeletal system. Look at their legs. They're built for endurance, not speed. Humans can't outrun most prey animals, but they can outlast them. They have a hunting strategy called persistence hunting. They chase animals for hours until the prey collapses from exhaustion. Jiho watched the hologram carefully. That seems inefficient. It's actually brilliant, Minho said. Most predators give up after a short chase. Humans don't, they just keep coming. No matter how many times their prey escapes, humans track it down and continue the pursuit. Eventually, the prey's body overheats and shuts down. The human walks up and kills it easily. That's disturbing, Subin commented from her station. Minho continued his presentation. They're also adaptable. Humans live in every climate on this planet. Frozen Arctic regions, burning deserts, dense jungles, high mountains, deep underwater facilities. They've even established a permanent base in space. No other species on Earth can survive in such varied environments. Hiren made notes on her tablet. What about their diet? Omnivorous. They eat almost anything. Plants, meat, insects, fungus. They've learned to process toxic foods through cooking and preparation. Humans can survive on resources that would kill most species. The hologram changed, showing the human brain. This is where things get interesting, Minho said. Their brain is large and complex. They use tools. They build structures. They create art and music. They have advanced language capabilities. But most importantly, they cooperate on a massive scale. Subin stood up and walked over to the display. That's what I've been researching. Human social behavior is extraordinary. Let me show you something. She pulled up footage from Earth's surface. The images showed a human city at night lit by millions of artificial lights. This is Tokyo, Subin explained. Population 37 million humans. That's more individuals than most species have in their entire civilization. And this is just one city. Earth has dozens like it. Jiho felt his skin tingle. 37 million in one place. They coordinate perfectly, Subin continued. Transportation systems, food distribution, waste management, communication networks. Millions of humans working together like parts of a machine. They don't even realize how unusual this is. She pulled up more footage, this time showing human history. Wars, disasters, plagues. Watch what happens when they face extinction-level threats, Subin said. The images showed a plague spreading through medieval Europe. Millions died. Cities were abandoned. Bodies piled in the streets. This disease killed half their population in some regions, Subin explained. Most species would have collapsed. But look at what humans did. The footage showed humans in crude protective equipment caring for the sick. Others burned contaminated areas. Some conducted primitive medical research. After years of suffering, the plague ended. The human population recovered and grew larger than before. They didn't just survive, Subin said. They learned. They adapted. The next time a plague came, they were ready. More images appeared. World wars, nuclear weapons, environmental disasters. Each time humanity was pushed to the edge of destruction. Each time they survived and came back stronger. This is the pattern, Subin said. Humans face a crisis, many die. The survivors analyze what went wrong. They develop new technology or strategies. Then they're better prepared for the next crisis. They're constantly evolving, not through biology but through knowledge and cooperation. Hiren looked troubled. You're describing them like they're a single organism responding to threats. That's exactly what they are, Subin replied. Look at this. She displayed a complex network diagram showing human communication systems. Internet connections, satellite links, phone networks, radio signals. Billions of connections between billions of humans. This is their nervous system, Subin said. They share information instantly across the entire planet. When something happens in one location, humans on the opposite side of the world know about it within seconds. They respond collectively. Jiho felt a chill run down his spine. The database was right. Let me show you one more thing, Minho said. He pulled up a timeline of human technological development. From primitive stone tools to space travel took them roughly 10,000 years. That's incredibly fast. Most species need hundreds of thousands of years to achieve spaceflight. The timeline showed key innovations: fire, agriculture, writing, mathematics, steam power, electricity, nuclear, energy, computers, rockets. Notice the pattern, Minho said. The development speed increases exponentially. The time between major innovations gets shorter and shorter. In the last 100 years, they've advanced more than in the previous 1,000 years combined. Why so fast? Hiren asked. Because they share knowledge, Subin answered. A human in one part of the world makes a discovery. They publish it. Other humans read it, improve it, and make new discoveries. Knowledge accumulates across generations. Each generation builds on what the previous one learned. They're not individuals anymore. They're a collective intelligence spanning billions of minds across thousands of years. Jiho walked closer to the holographic display. So when the database tried to classify them, it saw this. Not individual predators. A planetary-scale organism that learns, adapts, and grows stronger with every challenge. Exactly, Subin said. Minho pulled up combat footage from human history. Soldiers coordinating attacks. Generals planning strategies. Factories producing weapons. Scientists developing new military technology. Watch how they fight, Minho said. Small units work together perfectly. Larger armies coordinate across vast distances. Their entire industrial capacity can shift to military production in months. During their Second World War, they built thousands of aircraft, millions of weapons, and trained millions of soldiers in just a few years. The footage showed human soldiers in different environments. Jungles, deserts, oceans, frozen wastelands. They adapted to each one. They learned enemy tactics and developed countermeasures. When their weapons became obsolete, they invented new ones. They don't just fight, Minho said. They problem-solve in real time. Every battle teaches them something. Every defeat makes them stronger. Hiren sat down heavily in a chair. Council member Wanho thinks we're investigating a computer malfunction. We're not, Jiho said quietly. We're investigating the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. Subin pulled up current human space activity. Satellites, space stations, probes exploring their solar system. They're already expanding, she said. They have plans to colonize their moon and the planet Mars. They're building bigger ships, better engines. Given another century, they'll be spreading throughout this entire star system. And they don't even know we exist, Minho added. Imagine what happens when they learn they're not alone in the galaxy. When they realize there are other civilizations to learn from, or compete with. The team fell silent, staring at the data displays. Finally, Hiren spoke. We need more information. Subin, I want you to monitor their global communication networks. Learn how they think, what they value, what they fear. Minho, continue analyzing their biology and behavior. Look for weaknesses. Weaknesses? Minho asked. If the Council decides Earth is a threat, we need to know how to contain them, Hiren said grimly. Jiho looked back at the planet below, the beautiful blue sphere that somehow registered as a single unified monster. What if they can't be contained? No one answered. Over the next several weeks, the team gathered more data. They intercepted human transmissions, studied human culture, analyzed human psychology. The more they learned, the more disturbed they became. Humans fought each other constantly, but they also cooperated on massive projects. They created art of stunning beauty while simultaneously developing weapons of terrible destruction. They were capable of incredible kindness and horrifying cruelty, sometimes within the same individual. They're contradictory, Subin said during one of their meetings. They don't make sense. They make perfect sense, Jiho replied. They're a predator species that evolved to survive anything. Cooperation and competition, creation and destruction, it's all part of the same survival strategy. Hiren compiled their findings into a comprehensive report. Hiren slammed her hands on the conference table. This is a terrible idea. Council member Wanho looked at her coldly through the video screen. Your opinion is noted. The decision has been made. You're going to provoke them, Hiren argued. Every piece of data we've collected shows that humans respond aggressively to threats. That's exactly why we need to test them, Wanho replied. Your report claims they're dangerous, but you have no proof of their actual combat capabilities. We need to see how they respond to a real threat before we can make an informed decision. Jiho stood beside Hiren, trying to stay calm. Sir, we're recommending a cautious approach. Continue observation. Gather more data. There's no need to rush into direct contact. The first contact mission is scheduled for 4 months from now, Wanho said. I need to know if our diplomats will be safe. A simple probe deployment will tell us everything we need to know about human defensive capabilities. A simple probe deployment into their most heavily defended military zones, Hiren said bitterly. If they're as dangerous as you claim, they'll detect our probes and respond appropriately, Wanho said. If they're not, the probes will collect data and return without incident. Either way, we learned something useful. The screen went dark. The decision was final. Minho looked worried. How many probes are they sending? 12, Hiren said quietly. 4 over military bases. 4 near naval fleets, 4 around their space stations. That's not a test, Subin said. That's a provocation. The probes launched 3 days later. They were small, automated devices designed to test planetary defenses. Normally, they approached primitive civilizations openly, to gauge reaction times and weapon capabilities. This time, the Council had ordered them to use partial stealth and penetrate restricted airspace. The investigation team watched from their observation ship as the probes entered Earth's atmosphere. First probe approaching. North American continent, Subin reported. Target. Classified military facility in the desert. The probe descended through the clouds, heading toward a sprawling complex surrounded by fences and guard towers. Human military aircraft sat on runways. Radar installations rotated slowly. Probe is using standard stealth protocols, Subin continued. It should be nearly invisible to their primitive detection systems. 3 seconds later, alarms began blaring across the military base. They see it, Minho said. Surprised, human soldiers rushed to defensive positions. Aircraft engines roared to life. Weapon systems activated and tracked the descending probe. Then something unexpected happened. Reading multiple communication signals, Subin said, her voice rising. The base is transmitting to other facilities. They're sharing targeting data. Within 30 seconds, every military installation on the continent knew about the probe. Within 2 minutes, the information had spread globally. They're coordinating, Jiho said. All of them, simultaneously. A human fighter jet launched from the base, climbing rapidly toward the probe. The pilot maneuvered with precise skill, closing the distance in seconds. Probe is taking evasive action, Subin reported. The probe tried to escape, but the human pilot anticipated every move. The fighter jet fired a missile. The probe deployed countermeasures and attempted to flee, but the missile adjusted its course and detonated nearby. The probe's systems failed and it tumbled from the sky. Probe 1 destroyed, Subin announced. High-Aaron's face was grim. What about the others? The second probe had approached a naval fleet in the Pacific Ocean. Human ships detected it immediately. Fighter jets from an aircraft carrier intercepted it within minutes. The probe was shot down before it could collect any useful data. The third and fourth probes near other military sites met similar fates. Human response times were faster than expected. Their weapons were more accurate. Their coordination was flawless. But the probes near human space stations encountered something worse. Probe 9 approaching the International Space Station, Subin reported. They shouldn't be able to detect it at this distance, but they did. The space station changed its orbit slightly, moving away from the probe's trajectory. A small spacecraft undocked from the station and flew toward the probe. It wasn't a military vessel. It was a maintenance shuttle with a single pilot. What is he doing? Minho asked. The shuttle matched the probe's velocity and position. For a moment, it simply followed the probe, studying it. Then the shuttle extended a mechanical arm and grabbed the probe. They captured it, Jiho said in disbelief. They're not destroying it. They're taking it. The shuttle carried the probe back to the space station. Human technicians brought it inside and began examining it. They're going to reverse engineer our technology, Aaron said. That's impossible, Minho protested. That probe uses quantum processing cores and adaptive shielding. They don't have the scientific foundation to understand it. They will, Subin said quietly. Watch. Over the next 6 hours, the team monitored human communication networks. Scientists from around the world collaborated on analyzing the captured probe. They shared data, theories, and experimental results in real time. Thousands of human experts worked on the problem simultaneously. Within 18 hours, they had figured out the probe's basic power system. Within 36 hours, they understood its propulsion mechanics. Within 3 days, human engineers had built a crude prototype based on the probe's design. This is not possible, Minho whispered, staring at the data. It took our civilization 200 years to develop quantum processing. They did it in 3 days by studying a broken probe. They're not starting from nothing, Subin explained. They already had theoretical knowledge. They just needed to see proof that it could work. The probe showed them it was possible, so they figured out how. Aaron watched footage of the human pilot who had captured the probe. His name was Daehyun. He was 28 years old, a military pilot with extensive training. After capturing the probe, he had been interviewed by human news media. I saw something unusual in orbit, Daehyun told the reporters. My training taught me to investigate unknown objects. So I did. Weren't you scared? A reporter asked. Dae-hyun smiled. Of course. But fear doesn't stop you from doing your job. Hye-erin replayed the interview 3 times. He wasn't trying to be heroic. This is just how they think. They see a problem and they solve it. They encounter something unknown and they investigate it. Fear doesn't stop them. It motivates them. Meanwhile, the response to the probe incursions was escalating rapidly. A human military strategist named Yuna had been assigned to analyze the incidents. She worked in a secure facility, coordinating with intelligence agencies across multiple nations. The investigation team intercepted her communications. These probes all appeared simultaneously, Yuna explained to her superiors. They targeted military installations and space assets. This wasn't an accident or natural phenomenon. Someone is testing our defenses. Aliens? One of her supervisors asked skeptically. Unknown, Yuna replied, but the technology is clearly beyond our current capabilities. We need to assume hostile intent until proven otherwise. Within a week, human military readiness had increased dramatically. Fighter jets patrolled more aggressively. Naval fleets repositioned to strategic locations. Radar systems scanned the skies constantly. Space-based telescopes searched for unusual objects the humans were hunting. They're not scared, Minho observed. They're angry. Worse than angry, Subin corrected. They're focused. Look at their communication patterns. Every military in the world is sharing information now. Nations that were rivals yesterday are cooperating today. The probe incursion unified them. Hye-erin pulled up a map showing human military deployments. Red icons covered the planet. They've mobilized everything. If we sent another probe, they'd be waiting for it. And they're developing countermeasures, Subin added. She displayed human research projects that had been launched in the past week. New radar systems, improved missiles, space-based weapon platforms. They're treating this like a war. They're adapting. Jiho looked at the data with growing dread. The test was supposed to show us their defensive capabilities. Instead, it showed them what they need to defend against. We made them stronger. And we told them they're not alone in the universe, Hye-erin said. They know something is out here now. They know it's watching them. And instead of being afraid, they're preparing to fight it. The team sent their findings back to the council. The report was clear. Human defensive response exceeded all predictions. They had detected supposedly stealthy probes, destroyed most of them, and captured one for study. They had reversed-engineered advanced technology in less than a week. Most troubling, they had unified globally in response to a perceived external threat. Council member Wanho's response was brief and angry. Your warnings were noted. The test has concluded. Prepare for the next phase. Next phase? Jiho asked Hye-erin after reading the message. First contact, Hye-erin said grimly. They're going to send diplomats to Earth. After we just attacked them? The council doesn't see it that way. They think the probe deployment was a harmless test. They don't understand that humans see it as an act of war. Subin looked up from her console. There's more. The humans named the incident. They're calling it First Contact Day. They've made it an official event. They're preparing diplomat. BO. The diplomatic vessel entered Earth's solar system openly, broadcasting peaceful intentions on multiple frequencies. Unlike the stealth probes, this ship wanted to be seen. It was large, impressive, and designed to inspire awe rather than fear. Humans detected it immediately. Within hours, every telescope on Earth and in orbit was focused on the approaching vessel. Military forces went on high alert. Scientists analyzed every transmission. News networks broadcast continuous coverage. Hye-erin watched the human response from the observation ship. They're not panicking. They're excited, Subin corrected, monitoring human communication networks. Look at the social media activity. Millions of humans are posting about it. Some are scared, but most are curious or hopeful. They should be preparing for war, Minho said. We sent probes to their military bases just months ago. They are preparing for war, Jiho noted, pointing at satellite imagery showing military deployments around the designated landing site. But they're also preparing for peace. That's what makes them dangerous. They can do both simultaneously. The diplomatic vessel slowed as it approached Earth, giving humans time to respond. The council had chosen a representative, Ambassador Garam, an experienced diplomat who had successfully negotiated first contact with 17 primitive species. Hye-erin had tried to warn him. Humans aren't like other species. They're unpredictable, aggressive, they learn too quickly. Garam had dismissed her concerns. I've read your report. You're exaggerating. Every species thinks they're special. Humans are just another developing civilization. Once they see our technology and understand our power, they'll be respectful and cooperative. Now, watching the diplomatic vessel descend toward Earth, Hiren hoped Garam was right and she was wrong. The landing site was a flat area near a human city called Geneva. Thousands of humans had gathered behind security barriers to watch. Military personnel surrounded the landing zone. Cameras from every news organization on Earth pointed at the sky. The diplomatic vessel landed smoothly. Its landing ramp extended. Ambassador Garam emerged, accompanied by 2 guards and a protocol assistant. A group of humans approached from the opposite side of the landing zone. They wore formal clothing, walking with measured steps. The humans had chosen their own representative. His name was Taijin. He was 53 years old, a career diplomat who had negotiated treaties between hostile human nations. He spoke 7 human languages fluently. His face showed intelligence and caution in equal measure. Behind Taijin walked Sora, a human scientist who specialized in physics and xenobiology. She was 31 years old, brilliant, and known for her direct communication style. The humans had deliberately chosen a diplomatic scientific team, showing they were prepared for both conversation and analysis. The 2 groups met in the center of the landing zone. Ambassador Garam spoke first, using a translation device. Greetings. I represent the Galactic Council, an organization of civilized species dedicated to peaceful cooperation and mutual prosperity. We come in peace to welcome humanity into the larger galactic community. Taijin listened carefully, then responded in clear, measured tones. Welcome to Earth. We appreciate your peaceful intentions. However, we have questions about the unmanned probes that entered our atmosphere several months ago without permission or warning. Ambassador Garam hesitated. He hadn't expected humans to bring that up so quickly. Those were automated survey instruments conducting routine planetary assessments, standard procedure for pre-contact evaluation. They targeted our military installations, Taijin said calmly. They penetrated restricted airspace. We destroyed most of them. We captured one and studied its technology. That doesn't seem like routine surveying. Sora stepped forward. We've analyzed the probe's construction. The materials and propulsion system are impressive. We'd like to discuss technology exchange. We're particularly interested in your quantum processing cores. Garam looked uncomfortable. Technology sharing is possible, but typically occurs after formal diplomatic relations are established and trust is built over time. You sent probes to study us, Sora replied. We captured one to study you. That seems fair. Why should we trust you more than you trust us? The conversation was not going according to protocol. Garam had expected humans to be grateful for contact, perhaps intimidated by superior technology. Instead, they were confident and direct, treating the encounter as a negotiation between equals rather than a meeting between an advanced civilization and a primitive one. Perhaps we should discuss the diplomatic framework, Garam suggested, trying to regain control. The Galactic Council can offer your species many benefits: access to advanced technology, trade opportunities, protection from hostile forces. In exchange, we ask that Earth agrees to certain behavioral standards. Standards? Taijin asked. Peaceful conduct, respect for established territorial boundaries, cooperation with Council authority, standard requirements for member civilizations. Taijin exchanged glances with Sora. We're interested in cooperation, but we need clarification. What are these territorial boundaries? Where exactly can humanity travel? Garam pulled up a holographic star map. It showed the galaxy divided into colored zones. Most of the galaxy was marked in blue, indicating Council territory. A tiny red dot marked Earth's solar system. This is your designated zone, Garam explained. Human activity should remain within this system for the foreseeable future. Expansion beyond this boundary requires Council approval. How long is foreseeable future? Sora asked. That depends on your species' development. Typically, a newly contacted civilization remains in their home system for several hundred years while they adapt to galactic society. Unacceptable, Taijin said flatly. Garam blinked. Excuse me? Humanity has already sent probes beyond our solar system, Taijin explained. We have plans to explore nearby star systems within the next century. We're not going to stop because someone drew a line on a map. The Council has authority over galactic territory, Garam said, his voice becoming stern. These boundaries exist for good reasons. Young civilizations need time to mature before spreading into the galaxy. Why? Sora asked. What exactly are you afraid we'll do? Garam didn't answer immediately. In that moment of silence, Heron realized the truth. The Council was afraid of humanity. That was why they had sent probes. Why they were trying to impose restrictions. They had seen the data just like she had. They knew what humans were capable of. Tajin seemed to reach the same conclusion. You're not here to welcome us. You're here to contain us. That's not, Garam began. Your probes targeted our military, Tajin interrupted. You wanted to see if you could defeat us if necessary. Then you came here with restrictions already prepared. You're treating this like a threat assessment, not a diplomatic mission. The conversation was spiraling out of control. Garam tried to salvage it. The Council has encountered thousands of species. We have protocols for integrating new civilizations safely. These restrictions protect everyone, including you. Protect us from what? Sora asked. From yourselves, Garam admitted. Young species are impulsive, aggressive, they make mistakes. They start conflicts they can't win. The Council's guidance prevents these problems. We've been managing our own conflicts for thousands of years, Tajin said. We don't need guardians. Your history suggests otherwise, Garam replied, losing his diplomatic patience. Your species has fought countless wars. You've developed weapons capable of destroying your own planet. You've barely avoided extinction multiple times. Without guidance, you'll inevitably spread chaos throughout the galaxy. The human delegation fell silent. For a moment, Garam thought he had finally made them understand their place. Then Tajin spoke quietly. You're right. We've fought wars. We've made terrible weapons. We've nearly destroyed ourselves. But we survived. We learned. We improved. That's what humans do. We face problems and solve them. We make mistakes and correct them. We fall and get back up. Sora added. You see our history and think it makes us dangerous. We see our history and know it makes us strong. Every challenge we've overcome taught us something. Every mistake made us wiser. You want to limit us because you're afraid of what we might become. We want to explore because we're excited about what we might discover. Garam realized he was losing the negotiation. The Council's decision is final. If humanity refuses to accept these terms, you will be classified as a rogue civilization. That has serious consequences. What kind of consequences? Tajin asked. Economic sanctions. Travel restrictions. In extreme cases, military containment. You're threatening us, Tajin said. I'm explaining reality, Garam replied. The Council maintains galactic peace. Species that refuse to cooperate are contained until they mature enough to join civilized society. Sora laughed, surprising everyone. You actually believe that, don't you? You think you're the adults supervising children, but we're not children. We're competitors. You want to slow us down because you're worried we'll catch up too quickly. That's absurd, Garam protested, is it? Sora pulled out a tablet showing analysis of the captured probe. We studied your technology. It's impressive, but it's not magical. We can understand it. We can replicate it. Give us 50 years, maybe less, and we'll have ships as good as yours. Give us 100 years and we'll have better ones. That's what scares you. Garam looked at the human scientist with genuine surprise. The council chamber was crowded. Representatives from 43 species sat in the circular room. Their attention focused on the data displays showing Earth and its inhabitants. The debate had been going on for 3 days. Jiho stood at a podium in the center of the chamber, presenting his findings. Hiren sat nearby with the rest of the investigation team. They had been called to testify about their observations. Human technological advancement follows an exponential curve, Jiho explained, pointing at a graph. They went from primitive agriculture to spaceflight in roughly 10,000 years. Most civilizations need 10 times that long. If this pattern continues, they will achieve interstellar travel within a century. Council member Wanho leaned forward. That's why we need to act now, before they spread throughout the galaxy. Act how? Another council member asked. Military containment? If necessary, Wanho replied. We have the technological advantage. We can establish a blockade around their solar system, prevent them from leaving, give them time to mature. For how long? The other member challenged. 100 years? 1,000? And what happens when they eventually break through? Because they will. Everything we've seen suggests they never stop trying. Hiran stepped up to the podium. May I speak? Wanho nodded reluctantly. The council is approaching this wrong, Hiran said. You're treating humanity as a problem to be managed. But they're not a problem. They're a new type of civilization. Explain, said Council Member Borum, the elderly analyst who had supported the investigation from the beginning. Hiran pulled up the footage from the diplomatic meeting. Watch how Ambassador Garam tries to intimidate them with our superior technology. Now watch how the human scientist Sora responds. She's not afraid. She's analyzing. She sees our technology not as something impossible, but as something she can learn and eventually surpass. Arrogance, Wanho muttered. Confidence, Hiran corrected. Based on their history, humans have faced extinction-level threats multiple times and survived. They've overcome every obstacle through cooperation and innovation. When we sent probes to test them, they didn't panic. They adapted. When we tried to restrict them, they refused and prepared for conflict. This is their pattern. This is what the database was trying to tell us. She brought up the original error message that had started everything. Planetary scale apex predator detected. We thought this was a malfunction, Hiran continued, but it wasn't. The database correctly identified what humanity is, not individual predators, but a unified organism that treats threats as learning opportunities. When you challenge them, you don't weaken them. You make them stronger, Minho stood and added his analysis. Biologically, humans are unremarkable, but behaviorally, they're unique. They have something we've never seen before. A collective intelligence that spans their entire species. When one human learns something, they share it. When one group solves a problem, everyone benefits. They've created a planetary-scale consciousness that adapts and evolves faster than any individual organism could. Subin projected data from human communication networks. Look at how they respond to crises. When we sent the probes, within hours every military on Earth was coordinating. Different nations. Different languages. Often hostile to each other, but they unified instantly against an external threat. That's not politics. That's biology. They're hardwired to work together when threatened. The council chamber filled with worried murmurs. So what do you recommend? Borum asked. If we can't restrict them, and military containment will only make them more dangerous, what should we do? Accept them as equals, Jiho said. Establish genuine diplomatic relations. Trade with them. Learn from them. Let them learn from us. Because the alternative is making an enemy of the most adaptable species we've ever encountered. Wanho stood angrily. Unacceptable. They're barely a century into spaceflight. They have no right to demand equal status with civilizations that have been spacefaring for thousands of years. Rights don't matter, Hiran said bluntly. Power does. And humanity has more potential power than any species in the Council. You can either partner with them or fight them, but you cannot control them. We have superior technology, Wanho argued. Superior numbers. Superior resources, for now, Minho said. How long will that last? They reverse-engineered our probe technology in less than a week. Imagine what they'll do with a century, or a millennium. You're not thinking long-term, Borum spoke up. Perhaps we should examine historical precedent. Has the Council ever encountered a species like this before? An uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Finally, an old data archivist spoke from the back of the room. Yes, 7 times. Everyone turned to look at him. The archivist continued. The database contains records of 7 civilizations that were classified as planetary-scale predators. All of them were encountered early in their development. All were deemed too dangerous to integrate into galactic society. What happened to them? Borum asked. 3 were quarantined successfully. They remained in their home systems and eventually died out without spreading. 1 was destroyed in a military conflict when they attempted to break quarantine. The other 3, the archivist paused, looking uncomfortable. The other 3 broke containment and spread throughout their regions of space. The Council lost contact with them approximately 4,000 years ago. We don't know what happened to them. We just know they're no longer in their original systems. A chill ran through the chamber. You're saying 3 apex predator species are somewhere in the galaxy right now, and we don't know where? Someone asked. Or what they've become, the archivist added. Subin stood up. That's the point. These species don't follow normal patterns. They're too adaptable, too determined. You can't predict what they'll do, because they constantly evolved new strategies. The Council tried to contain them and failed. Earth is the first living apex predator civilization we've encountered in thousands of years. We have a chance to learn from past mistakes. By surrendering to their demands? Wonho asked sarcastically. By treating them as the threat they actually are, Hierin replied. Not an enemy to defeat, but a force of nature to respect. You don't fight a storm. You prepare for it and adapt to it. Wonho looked around the chamber. So the Council should just accept that a primitive species can dictate terms to us? What message does that send to other civilizations? It sends the message that the Council is wise enough to recognize when a species is beyond our traditional frameworks, Borum said thoughtfully. Perhaps that's not weakness. Perhaps that's intelligence. The debate continued for hours. Arguments for and against. Some Council members wanted military action. Others wanted diplomatic engagement. A few suggested simply ignoring Earth and hoping humans would stay in their own system voluntarily. Finally, Borum called for a vote. The question before the Council: should humanity be offered full diplomatic recognition and equal status, despite their primitive technological level? The vote was close. Many Council members were reluctant to set such a precedent. But the evidence was overwhelming. Humanity couldn't be controlled through traditional means. Attempting military containment would likely fail and create a permanent enemy. And most convincing of all, the historical record showed that apex predator civilizations couldn't be stopped, only partnered with. The final vote was 24 in favor. 19 against. Humanity would be offered equal diplomatic status. Wonho stood in protest. This is a mistake. We're legitimizing their arrogance, encouraging their expansion. They'll spread throughout the galaxy and disrupt the order we've spent millennia building. Perhaps that order needs disrupting, Borum replied calmly. The Council has grown stagnant. We've spent centuries maintaining stability, rather than pursuing growth. Humanity will challenge us. They'll force us to innovate and adapt. That might be exactly what we need. Or it might be the end of galactic civilization as we know it, Wonho warned. Maybe, Borum agreed, but it's already too late to stop it. Humanity knows we exist now. They know they're not alone. You can't make them forget that. You can't make them stop reaching for the stars. We can either guide that growth or be swept aside by it. The decision was made. Earth would receive formal diplomatic recognition. No restrictions on expansion. No quarantine. Instead, the Council would establish an embassy on Earth, offer technology exchanges, and integrate humanity into galactic society as quickly as possible. The logic was simple. If apex predator civilizations couldn't be contained, the best strategy was to make them allies before they became threats. Hierin, Jiho, and the investigation team were assigned to establish the Earth Embassy. They would be the first official Council representatives to live among humans long-term. As they prepared to return to Earth, Minho expressed his concerns. What if we're wrong? What if integrating them makes things worse? We're probably wrong, Hierin admitted. But doing nothing was never an option. At least this way we can monitor them closely and try to influence their development. You think we can influence humans? Subin asked skeptically. No, Hierin said honestly. But maybe they can influence us. The embassy was established in Geneva, near the site of the failed diplomatic meeting. Taejin was appointed as Earth's primary liaison,